What is up everyone, it is Sajambi and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at my tips when playing Phantom Forces on controller. Now despite being first developed over 5 years ago, it was only recently that Phantom Forces finally became compatible with players on controllers. Initially, the Phantom Forces Xbox beta was unfinished and largely unplayable for many of those wishing to play on console. However, after several reworks and updates, the game was finally open to Xbox and controller players, and in one of the biggest success stories of the year, Phantom Forces ultimately won the Xbox Game of the Year award at the 8th Bloxy Awards in March 2021. In this video, I'll be going through my tips to help you uplift your mechanics and gameplay on controller, to increase your kills, improve your stats, and impress your friends. But while all of these tips will apply to controller players, some of the tips in this video might still be relevant if you're on mouse and keyboard, so stick around as you might gain some handy knowledge. First of all, let's talk about controls. Thankfully, Phantom Forces is one of the more welcoming games when it comes to controller players, with the controls largely mimicking those of traditional shooters like Call of Duty or Battlefield. The regular controls like left trigger to aim and right trigger to shoot still holds true, but you will almost certainly need to test your camera sensitivity before you find something you are happy with. Going through the basic list of controls, press X to reload, Y to swap weapons, A to jump, B to crouch, left bumper to spot enemies, and right bumper to throw a grenade. Outside of combat, you can press the share button on the center left side of the controller to show and hide the leaderboard, and like all Roblox games, hit the menu button on the center right to open up the Roblox menu. There are also a number of controls that can be done while sprinting too. This can be activated by pressing your left stick down. While sprinting, press B to slide, or left bumper to dive. Rounding out the remaining buttons on controller, press up on the D-pad to inspect your weapon, and right to either pick up a gun or to toggle your gun's fire rate between single, burst and automatic. Finally, your right stick that moves the camera can be pressed to melee in a close range engagement. The only buttons that aren't used on controller is the left and down buttons on the D-pad. There are also special moves which you can do using a combination of buttons, and these are for players who are already comfortable performing basic moves. One of these is the jump dive, which increases your movement speed and throws you forward a bit further. This can be achieved by pressing A while sprinting and pressing LB while in the air. Sadly for fans of the super jump, this isn't possible on controller as there is no equivalent to the X key on mouse and keyboard. Nevertheless, controller still offers you a wide range of options when engaging enemies. Next up, let's talk about weapons. From the outset, you'll have a plethora of level 1 guns at your disposal, and these can be extremely handy if you want to start on the right foot. The M4A1 is probably your best option when starting, since its consistent damage and lethality will carry you to victory as you begin your Phantom Forces journey. Combining this with attachments like the muzzle brake, folding grip and full stock will convert your starter weapon into a weapon which can carry you and your team to success from the beginning. The recoil reduction given to you by these attachments gives you the stability you need to engage at any range and more likely than not come away with a pick. The intervention is another solid option, however due to it being a sniper, it will only be useful on large maps with open areas. Once you have either amassed the levels or the cash, guns like the G36 and the AS Val can take you to the next level once you get comfortable with them. However, every player is different when it comes to weapons, so feel free to experiment with newly unlocked weapons to see whether they work for you. Rounding out your loadout, you will want to think about secondaries. These are the guns that can get you out of sticky situations, like when you run out of ammo or when your primary doesn't fit the situation. You want a secondary that can save your life and clean up any situation which was started by your primary or a teammate. The Executioner is probably the best all-round secondary, as its often lethal damage can make it work as a solid secondary and even as a main weapon. The G17 is also a nice option. Its more traditional fire rate makes it a common secondary for many players. However, like with primaries, Each player will have a secondary gun that works best for them, so don't be scared to hop into a game and try some out. Finally, one final rule when it comes to weapon management. It is always quicker to swap to your secondary than to reload your primary. Now let's talk about maps and objectives. For a shooter game, Phantom Forces has all of your usual suspects when it comes to game modes. Team Deathmatch, Kill Confirmed, Capture the Flag, and Hardpoint are all shooter staples which you can play in Phantom Forces. Along with this, there is also a large pool of maps which will put you in nearly every situation imaginable. We have Desert Storm with its rooftop skirmishes, Metro and its long corridors, even Suburbia and its garden firefights. With the large differences between each map and each game mode, you will need to get comfortable with playing off your teammates and off the landscape. In Team Deathmatch, it's all about fragging, so most tactics go out of the window. With Kill Confirmed, it's more of the same, but you'll want to keep your kills close range to allow you to pick up the confirmation point. For objective games like King of the Hill, Hardpoint, or Capture the Flag, things will be a little different. In these games, you will ultimately want to play the objective and match the pace of your opponents. An early lead very often snowballs. That's why it's recommended to push the initiative early to get some early points on the board. Going for kills, while effective in getting a foothold in the game, will largely be ineffective if you are nowhere near the objective. You really don't want to be farming for kills when your team is trying to claim the hardpoint on the other side of the map. Realistically, if the game is at a stage where it is already over, you can spend the last couple of minutes boosting your stats, since the overall effect on the game is guaranteed to be zero. To give you the edge on the competition, you need to think about movement. Whether you are playing for an objective or in a straight up deathmatch, playing the right positions is key to pushing yourself and your team forward in the game. Playing off angles to find a pick is an excellent way to pick off a kill and clear the way for your team to advance. If you are holding an objective, falling back and covering angles that enemies will push from will mean not only do you add a kill to your column, but will also mean your team can pick up valuable points to win the game. When attacking, pushing in numbers or rotating on a flank are both effective ways to rack up points, so try to avoid pushing an open area on your own. Moving to areas of elevation is also a relatively simple strategy to scout out areas and pick off rotating enemies from a distance. Points of elevation may include, but are not limited to, cranes, hills, and the top floor of buildings. Most spawns in Phantom Forces typically have an area of elevation which you can immediately run to and assess the battlefield. Depending on your gun, you can at least put enemies under pressure and potentially get an easy kill or an assist. Speaking of spawns, try not to run in following a death when looking for an immediate response, as this typically ends in another death. Instead, teaming up with others or playing more passively might be better in the long run, as this allows the game to develop in front of you as you think about your next move. It might be enticing to rush into a hill and get a triple kill, but let's be real here. Finally, let's talk about mentality. Phantom Forces has quickly become one of the most accessible Roblox games for controller players, but you still need to work hard for a win. Reflecting on your performances after each game is key to ensuring you can work on your strengths and root out bad habits which can cause excess deaths. Phantom Forces is largely a momentum-based game, which makes finding untraded kills and backdoor plays so much more important. The team which controls the hills and claims the flags will have the freedom to roam and pick off enemies who have to push to keep the game going. If you can get this early advantage, the game can snowball into an easy win as the kills come in and the points are tallied. However, if you find yourself on the losing end, don't feel too disheartened, as there is always something to learn regardless of the result. Remember, it's just a game, and a positive attitude will take you much further than one big win ever could. That's it for this video. Best of luck in your new Phantom Forces endeavours. As with many Roblox games, Playing on controller is something that takes getting used to, so feel free to hop into a game and test out the settings, guns and attachments that are right for you. If you have any other tips that I missed, feel free to leave a comment down below with your advice for aspiring ghosts and phantoms. As always, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe and hit the bell icon for more videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!